From the Bellingham Police Department, and I should tell the court that investigation is ongoing at this time, that state that on May 26, 2014, in the early morning hours, a Bellingham police officer saw a vehicle spinning its tires in the 1200 block of State Street when it was stationary. After the engine repeatedly revved, the truck accelerated rapidly away from a parked position and lost control. This was a one-ton vehicle. It ran up onto the east sidewalk of North State and struck pedestrians named Brendan Gorman, Brian Corey, and John Weitzel. These three were transported to St. Joseph Hospital with substantial injuries. The truck continued southeast through the parking lot of a business called The Color Pot, which I think sells paint, striking and damaging a cement curb fixture and security chain. It then crossed the north sidewalk of the 300 block of East Chestnut Street, where it struck and ran over Dragon Scribonia. This caused Mr. Scribonia to suffer trauma resulting in fatal head and thoracic injuries, and that person is indeed deceased. The truck entered the left eastbound lane of East Chestnut Street and struck a 2012 Toyota 4Runner driven by a person named Holly Lamb and occupied by four other people. The occupants of the Toyota were uninjured, but the Toyota was badly damaged, and this forced the Toyota into a 1999 Honda CRV owned by a gentleman named Paul Forrester. It was parked unattended on the south side of the street. The Honda was also struck by the Ford and received heavy damage to the entire left side. The truck then reversed and disengaged from the Honda and accelerated over the south sidewalk, sideswiping the front end of the Honda. The truck then traveled southwest through another parking lot in the southeast corner of North State and East Chestnut, bouncing over parking lot stop bars. It then traveled west across both lanes of North State Street and struck a Toyota Celica owned by a person named Jedediah Forsyth, which was parked unattended on the west side of the street. That impact knocked the Toyota onto the sidewalk and into a parking meter owned by Bellingham, damaging that. The Toyota suffered disabling damage to the left rear fender and rear axle. A gentleman named Tyler Dixon, who witnessed the entire collision sequence, feared that the driver, who was Mr. Brown, would succeed in fleeing the scene unless someone intervened. He leapt halfway onto the open driver window of the Ford truck and tried to stop Brown. In an effort to dislodge Dixon and leave the scene, Mr. Brown accelerated rapidly away southbound on North State Street, striking a 1997 Toyota Pathfinder owned by another person named Nicholas Cowlin. The Toyota received moderate damage to the left side. The Brown then swerved the Ford violently in his continued attempt to dislodge Dixon. The Ford fishtailed and swerved off of the west side of the street across the sidewalk and struck a metal railing owned by Daylight Properties. This sort of sheared off the railing and knocked it to the parking lot 10 feet below. Dixon was dislodged by this impact and suffered substantial injuries to his fingers and bruised ribs. Now, Mr. Brown's license to drive was suspended according to a driver's check. This is a Rhode Island driver's license according to the materials that I've been given. He was he was noted to have, he said he had been drinking at the Up and Up Tavern. He was noted to have slurred speech and odor of intoxicants. He another remark that he was heard to say was, quote, "Please tell me the person I hit is okay." After that, he was told that the person that he hit was deceased. The police reports that I have here say that, and Mr. Turner and I spoke about this earlier, I think I misspoke. I said .203, the result of the PBT test for alcohol was .230. Later on, I think at the St. Joseph Hospital, Mr. Brown gave a slightly different version of events, where he said that he had had 1 to 1.5 beers while he was at the Up and Up, and that when he started the vehicle took off and he intentionally ran into buildings and cars to try to save himself.
I believe that, and the state probably has the evidence, but there is an aftermarket throttle control, which I think malfunctioned that evening, which caused the car to just keep accelerating sort of out of control, and he was trying to gain control over it during the whole time. The PBTs have questionable validity. I know they're useful for probable cause. We don't have any witnesses from the bar or anything at this point saying that he was terribly intoxicated or any witnesses that might tie up some result like that with some actual behavior. I think he was just playing pool and had some beers at the Up and Up. He has the criminal history side showed just an arrest for a theft, an FTA, which is sort of vague at this point. I know it's difficult to get things from out of state. That's true, he's from back east. He's pretty much blind today in the sense that he has very heavy prescription glasses that may have been broken, or he was told that they were broken in the accident and he's got to replace a pair in the car. But his truck, so I can't tell, but I'm wondering, I think he may have, there may be someone here for him. If there is, I would just ask the court, or just to take.
I'll inquire.
Thank you. And he has lived out here. I think he's a woodworker. He does cabinet making, and he's got a sawmill and planers and everything. And he's a skilled woodworker in that way. I think his boss, he has a boss who's worked with since he's been here that appreciates him. He has his two roommates he lived with. I think it's one of those who are here, Mr. Petty perhaps, who support him. He seems like a fine young man with, frankly, no criminal history, no alcohol-related history. Whatever this was, we all know it's a tragedy, and that goes without saying. When I visited him yesterday, he was, you know, he intermittently wept about this, so there's certainly issues, remorse, and things he certainly feels about what happened in this accident. The state's asking for $1 million. This is not a capital case, or it's not, as we know, these things really, there's no mens rea involved in this. It's just if you drank and then you're behind the wheel and somebody's injured and or killed while you're behind the wheel, it's a strict liability crime. So it's not, we're not looking at somebody who's a bad actor in that way. It's somebody more than anything, whether it turns out to have been related to alcohol or manufacture a problem with the equipment in the car. There's certainly no indication he's the type of person who would do anything to hurt somebody intentionally.